I know what you're thinking. Isn't worse like really harsh? Oh, so you just hate authors, huh? You are ruining someone's income. Do you not care? How do you call yourself a reader? Yep, I read your mind. I know what you're thinking. If you think any of those things, rewind. The reason why best and worst videos are really helpful is because reading is, say it with me, subjective. I subjectively have, you know, different tastes. I like certain things. So if I say that I like something, I'm not assuming that you'll like it too. Just an FYI. I'm telling you this best and worst list so that way you can see if you would like any of those aspects of the book, or if you agree with me in the sense that, oh, I don't like that aspect, maybe I shouldn't pick up that book. It's just for general understanding, and I'm so excited to share a lot of books that I really loved, and I'm also so behind on so many amazing books. So some of these books you guys might be like, been there, done that. But y'all know I'm working on my physical TBR. But yeah, reading is subjective. Is that okay with you? Whatever. I thought so. The cool thing about this year is that I read really widely in genre. For me at least, I normally read a lot of YA, and I finally started dipping my toe in some adult fiction, some sci-fi. I'm very excited to share my favorites. I have 5 favorites and 5 not so favorites. There might be some controversial picks in this litter, but again, subjective. The theme of today's video. Your opinion's safe here. Let's start off with one that I think everyone has already read, has already loved, so I'm gonna quickly just fly by this one. The first book is Perks of Being a Wallflower. I know, yell at me in the comments. I am so behind. I have a genuine fear of hyped books because I always feel very let down by them. Let me know in the comments below. Do you feel the same way? Do hyped books normally disappoint you? Because that's how I tend to feel. Like my worst list books, a lot of them are very hyped, and I'm just like, why don't I connect as deeply as everyone else? Sad. If you don't know The Perks of Being a Wallflower, it's basically about a boy going through high school. He's not very social, he's a wallflower, so he likes to observe. And he's kind of figuring himself out and past traumas. There's lots of trigger warnings, but this is a wonderfully written book. You don't even realize that you're reading like letters, because this whole format is the main character writing letters to someone. It's so endearing, and I feel like everybody can kind of get something out of this book. I really wish I read this way sooner. So this is me calling you out. If you also haven't read The Perks of Being a Wallflower yet, give it a chance. Do it this year. You won't regret it. I also then watched the movie. Solid. The first sentence is August 25th, 1991. Dear friend, I'm writing to you because she said you listen and understand and didn't try and sleep with that person at that party even though you could have. Touching. This book wasn't the catalyst for my crazy need for sci-fi, but it definitely was just one of the top tier sci-fis that I read this year, and that is How to Lose the Time War.
Not me reading the title wrong. Wow. Just wow. Again, how can I call myself a reader? Wow.
I have no words, I just have all the feelings. Beautifully written. Just so... That's how I feel. This is a story about red and blue, and they're on opposite sides of a time war. So they have the ability to travel through time, kind of manipulate space too and matter, like they can change themselves. And they change the timeline so that way their side of the war, red or blue, their side is that the timeline basically does what their side wants. Basically, it's complicated. Some stuff went over my head, but I really loved the manipulation of the world, the constant changing, and then how they started writing letters to each other. Oh my god, there's a little bit of a theme. These first two are both about protagonists writing letters to other people. Sensing a theme, I really did enjoy this writing style. It was lyrical and descriptive and just everything I wanted. The first sentence is, when red wins, she stands alone. If you're interested in the next few other sentences, they're fun. I have to share them. Blood slicks her hair. She breathes out steam in the last night of this dying world. That was fun. The sass level in this book too is just... I did not stray too far away from my YA loves. obviously The Perks of Being a Wallflower. But this book I find to be super underrated. I heard about it from a different booktuber, Alex. I'll link her channel down below. She gives awesome recommendations. I find that I've really enjoyed every recommendation she's given me, but it is If I Tell You the Truth. And I'll also link all these books down below if you're interested in checking them out from your library, from Amazon, whatever you want. But this story is a really complex story about a woman who is immigrating to Canada after a sexual assault. She initially went to go to school in Canada, but ended up getting assaulted before and then just staying in Canada to stay away from her assaulter. She didn't feel safe, so she keeps the baby, and it's a story that unravels her past but also her present, where she has the child and the child is kind of out of the loop on why her mom behaves the way she does. It's a very honest and kind of liberating story about sexual assaults. I feel like a lot of stories kind of can guilt people who are victims into speaking up, and I feel like this book does a really good job of just saying the one thing you have to do for victims like that is just to listen and do whatever they need, because they're dealing it with it. It's their life, and I feel like this book really touches upon how it can affect you. Another fun fact is that there are many poems in here and illustrations, but it's mostly written in a narrative voice, and it switches between the voices of the mother and the daughter. It's a very interesting story of family, love, challenges, and even the side characters have a lot of depth to them. So I think this is such just a well-rounded book, but caution for trigger warnings. See, and this is why I love when books write the trigger warnings in the front. So sexual assault, police brutality, immigration trauma, victim blaming, domestic violence, alcoholism, depression, and anxiety. It tackles a lot. A lot. Very first page has a little poem, and it says, "Some stories bury themselves so deep within the flower bed of your mind that the earth trembles, throbs when they're dug out." Power. The words in this are just so powerful and so gripping. It was just such a whole body experience. Still sticking with my YA because, you know, I love my YA, even though I did end up reading a decent amount of adult fiction. But oh, this story made me cry so much. I think I've been crying more reading books. I don't know if I'm getting better at picking books that actually impact me, which is why the books that disappointed me so much. Whereas this did not disappoint, and that is The Weight of the Stars. So good. If you haven't read this, highly recommend. If you like contemporary, there's a sprinkle of sci-fi. So this story is based around two young ladies. One young girl who, when her mom was like pregnant with her, decided to go on a deep space exploration where she was supposed to spend the rest of her life just exploring space and learning, but ended up getting pregnant before giving birth to the child, giving it away, and then heading off to space for the rest of her life. So it's very controversial. And then the other protagonist is a girl who kind of brings in like stray dogs, stray kids. So when she sees this new girl in town who has this really sad, tragic past, she wants to help her acclimate, but not in like the best way. She doesn't do a very good job. But they learn and they grow, and each, again, the side characters are just amazing. The story is amazing. It's a romance. There's a romance in it. But what I love and what I've learned is that I like a romance that takes time to develop, and it's not all about them being in love, but more so them falling in love, recognizing their feelings. It's like, okay, where do we go from here? And this story just does it at such a good pace. The first half of the book is not a love story. It is two girls in this small town dealing with their messed up past. When your mom leaves and goes off to space and leaves you behind, that's pretty bad. That's pretty traumatic. And boy, when I tell you I cried, I cried. I did not expect that, honestly, but it hit me in the feels. First sentence is, "She woke up to the sound of screaming." And then the second sentence, just because it's so good, "She always woke up to the sound of screaming." What a good, such good sentences. This next book is gonna be controversial. Some of you guys are gonna be like, "You have no taste. How dare you put these books in the most disappointing, and these books is the best, and this is one of your best?" I know, guys, I have no taste. I don't know why you're watching this video. During 2021, I was definitely still in a very big contemporary kick. It wasn't until later on in the year when I started reading more adult fantasy and sci-fi, because, you know, pandemic, you know, it's rough times. I was like, where's my fluffy joy? This is a book of fluffy joy, and it was one of the 5 stars that I gave this year. It was probably one of like 10 books that I actually like physically read. If you know me, I'm an audiobook listener. That's my favorite way to read a book. So I really want to go back into this and listen to the audiobook. But this is such a cheesy, corny romance story where, again, they don't start off in love, but it's the process of them discovering who each other, like who they are, and then like messy stuff happens, and then like they happen to fall in love, and it's very cute. If you like any Cinderella retelling stories or movies, like the Selena Gomez one or the Hilary Duff one, I highly recommend you check this out. I found it to be really, really good. It just really fun. Not like the writing was spectacular or the references were all very funny. There's a lot of references in this for Star Trek and a bunch of fandoms, so I feel like also if you're kind of a nerd, you'll love it. I loved it. So we have Ella, who is our Cinderella, and she has her stepmoms and her stepsisters, and they're really mean to her, yada yada. She's still grieving her parents' death. Most Cinderella retellings kind of just skip over the grief, but I really like how she spends a lot of time thinking about it and actually like mourning it, but at the same time trying to honor her parents. My favorite part actually, I think, was Darian's perspective, because he's a person of color and an actor, and he's really good looking, so he's very much typecast and everyone thinks he's just a stereotype, like brutish, stupid, doesn't know anything. So I really enjoyed his perspective. He's an actor. He got cast as the lead role in the like kind of Star Trek of this world in the reboot. Everyone's kind of judging him and looking at him very like closely to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. So he's up against a huge fandom, Ella included, where she has a blog and she writes mean things about him, that he's, you know, dumb and he's just a pretty boy and he doesn't know how to act, all that stuff. So I thought it was such an interesting perspective, but also just so fun. I was like smiling the whole time while reading this. It was lots of fun to read. I was like really enthralled the whole way through. I was trying to figure out what would happen next, and I think I really cared for Darian's perspective. And it's interesting that this is my favorite book, because one of my least favorite books is a companion novel to this. I'll get into that in a second. Now let me get into 2 favorites that I want to mention because they're just the bomb. If you like mangas, full stop, mangas, if you like action, you like romance, historical stuff, I got some recommendations for you. First off, we have a romantic, I want to say comedy, but it's more so a drama. There's some funny moments, but it's just the sweetest, softest little romance manga. It's called A Sign of Affection. It's about a girl who is deaf and she is trying to have a relationship. She's in college and she's kind of telling him like, oh, don't hug me from behind, it can scare me, I can't hear you approaching. And she's establishing boundaries and she's like, never kissed a guy, and she's learning all this really cute stuff. It's literally so soft. Highly recommend. The next manga I highly recommend if you like historical fiction. It's not really historical fiction, but it feels like a period piece because it's dated. There's knights and stuff. So historical fiction, romance, there's a little bit of a love triangle, and action and adventure. I would highly recommend Prince Feyre. So this is a story about a small country being enclosed by a big country and about to be taken over. They're at war and the prince gets assassinated. But there's a general who knows that there is a lookalike, a girl who looks just like the prince. So they take her and put her in his place to kind of keep the country together so it doesn't all fall apart. And it's hard and it's rough. And this book, I cried after the first chapter. Like the very first volume, very first chapter, when that chapter ended, I cried because it just didn't go the way I expected. And I really cared for these characters and the author did me so freaking dirty. I kid you not, so dirty. Highly recommend checking it out. It's one of my favorite books of the year. Totally, completely, utterly obsessed. Check it out, please. Now it's time to talk about the worst books for me in 2021. Terrible person. Okay, let's get into it. These again are in no particular order, and it is like worst, most disappointing books. So I have very specific reasons why I didn't enjoy these books, and it may help you either be like, ooh, I want to check out that book, or maybe I don't. Maybe I'll take a pass. Maybe give it another year or so. We'll see. First, I'm actually gonna talk about 2 classics that are well loved that I did not enjoy for very different reasons. So first being Beloved by Toni Morrison.
Here I go again, saying the wrong title. I meant the bluest eye. I really do want to read Beloved at some point.
I'm putting this in my most disappointed mostly because, or my worst list, because I was expecting this to be a 5-star. The amount of people who talk about how amazing this book is and the writing. So I was really let down when I picked up this book. I knew of the trigger warnings and all of that stuff. It's very hard to explain why I didn't like this book. This book was a 3-star, so it's not like I hate it or anything. It just, I was expecting it to be a 5-star. Talks about a lot of different perspectives, but mostly it's about Bicola, this young girl who thinks she's ugly and she thinks she'd be really pretty if she had blue eyes and people would treat her better. There's a lot of trigger warnings. I knew them going into that, and I don't think that was my issue with it. I find that the book had an impact, it had a message. I don't know if it was done to the fullest extent. In the author's notes, Toni Morrison mentions that like, oh, like I didn't execute this like the best that she could, and I understand the choices she made because Bicola was the main girl, kind of an empty person. She didn't believe in herself, she didn't have any beliefs to stand on. We couldn't really follow her around, we had to follow a lot of other people, but a lot of those perspectives I did not like. I don't feel like I need to enjoy someone's perspective, but I don't want to leave someone's perspective still having like so many questions and also hating them so much. Like nearly every person in the book I hated deeply, and I felt like sometimes the writing style was trying to sympathize with those people and their circumstances, and I sympathize with them. But at the same time, when you become a rapist, I don't sympathize with you. There was like 3 rapists or pedophiles in this book. I was just really shocked by that. I really liked the beginning first few chapters when we were focused on Bicola in, I forget what household, but she was with 2 girls, and I liked how they talked with each other and how they talked about beauty, and like how one of them had a doll who was like blue-eyed, blonde hair, and how she got so angry at it she would like rip it apart, and she didn't really understand why. I really liked how it started, and then we started diving into more of the adults' perspectives, and it was just not something I would reread. I'm glad I read it, but I don't think I want to reread this book. I don't think it impacted me enough with the message that I think it was intended to give. I think Native Son does a really good job talking about the psychology of being broken by a system. I just would adjust your expectations. The one thing that stands out about this book is that it's very, very well written. So I'm looking forward to reading more of her work, but I definitely don't think I'm going to be purchasing those books. I think I'm going to be getting them from the library because I don't know if I'll like them enough to want to keep them in my collection, if that makes sense. But I digress. The next classic is A Brave New World. I was really getting into sci-fi this year, as I've mentioned before several times in this video, and though I like the concept of Brave New World, I just don't think I enjoyed the writing of it and the character development of it, and I don't think there was supposed to be any character development. You go in, it's very plot driven, there's lots of things happening, science, cloning. I really enjoyed all the scientific aspects, but the like people and what they were doing, like this guy we're following and this girl we're following, I didn't really care for the story, if that makes sense. I just thought the world was really interesting. So yeah, I'm trying to read 1984 this year, which I know is another big sci-fi. I'm trying to read all of those big classic sci-fis soon so I can start forming opinions about what kind of stuff I like and getting more specific. With A Brave New World, I think it was good, but I think I do kind of like more character-driven stories with just some plot that I can engage in, especially when it comes to sci-fi. I love political intrigue and things like that. I love when characters are portraying each other, and A Brave New World was definitely engaging, but like in a different way. I gave it a 3-star, but I don't think it's anything I would pick up or recommend too highly. If you're just starting sci-fi, I would definitely check it out to see if that's the kind of sci-fis you would like to read. This next one is so funny because I did just mention Geekerella as a favorite book, and a really disappointing book was The Princess and the Fangirl, which is the 2nd novel in this series, companion novel, I think that's what they're called. So it's in the same world, yada yada, different people, 2 girls. It's so sad because I was so excited for this cute lesbian couple, and I just did not like either character. I gave it a 2.5 star. I just could not stand either character. I was not rooting for them, and the book felt like it was trying to make me root for them, but I also just don't like the Princess and the Pauper story. So it's all about, yeah, Princess and the Pauper, Like, you know, one girl, she's working a job, yada yada. The other girl is an actress in that big movie I was talking about in Geekerella. And you kind of get to understand her perspective a little bit more, but it didn't do it the same way with Darian. It didn't hit, which makes me so sad because I was looking for a fun time and it did not hit well. And then on top of that, all the cheesy jokes and references really miss when I don't care about the characters, which is so funny. So yeah, that was a 2.5 star. Again, highly recommend if you like The Princess and the Pauper, that kind of classic story. Otherwise, I wouldn't bother with it. Maybe check out Geekerella if you like Cinderella retellings. Top tier. 2 more disappointing books, and again, I feel like you guys have heard me talk about this, but Ace of Spades, a debut novel. And again, I think I'm gonna chillax on new releases because yeah, I don't want to spend money and then be really disappointed and sad because I got the UK cover, it was so gorgeous, and I personally didn't like the story, and that's on me. I probably should have, you know, listened to it on Scribd or got it from my library first and then bought it, especially because it's a thriller. And I realized this past year, like, thriller contemporary stories don't engage me. I really don't care about the whodunit aspect. I need to care for the characters at least, and I didn't care for either of these characters. I got 200 some pages into it, like more than halfway through, and then I was like, you know what, I'll just get the audiobook and like blaze through it. I listened to it for 30 minutes and was like, I didn't retain any of that. I just really didn't care for the main characters. I'm so sorry. The story of Ace of Spades is about 2 black students that go to an all-white private school. The boy, he is more underprivileged and has interesting relations with other guys. Clearly he's queer. We love that. But he is getting picked on, and same with the main girl character is getting picked on at school because they're like the head students. And for some reason, 200 pages into this book, they both still don't think it's because they're the only black students, and the principal's like targeting them and being mean. I've been told if I read to the end, I would understand why, but I just did not care about either character. But the funny thing is, I find that the writing style was super easy, super fun, but I didn't care for the characters. I think that's the thing that I lacked, and I didn't give it a rating because I didn't finish it. And I got 200 pages into it, but it was really disappointing because I was so excited for this book and I had heard nothing but good things. So I feel like I'm a part of that like 10% who's like, not for me. Last but certainly not least, Permanent Record. I feel so bad talking about this book because it honestly, objectively, a good romance book, only if you like when characters are already in love in the beginning and then you just see them have kind of falling outs and like dealing with life, and then, you know, they either end up together or not at the end. I realized, as I said earlier, I like stories where the love and romance develops on the page. I like to see it. It makes it feel more believable in my mind, whereas Permanent Record, personally, especially with the actor perspective, there was a main guy character struggling, just dropped out of school, having a hard time paying his bills, and this like Disney star girl who's super rich, super beautiful, yada yada. They meet at a bodega at midnight, eat snacks, chat. The next day they have a coffee date, and not even the next day, they fly across the country together to stay in a hotel together. And they're like in love and stuff. I'm just like, that blew me away. I was like, stranger danger. And he mentions it at one point. He's like, she could just kill me and I would like disappear. Yes, you would. And I also don't understand stories where it's like when you like someone and you literally have had just a conversation with them. I get infatuation where it's like, ooh, you're interesting, like let me dig a little deeper. I don't understand, I like you, I'm obsessed about you, like I need to date you, I'm in love with you. It's like, it's been 3 days. I read about, I want to say 40% of this book. I was trying to listen to the audiobook, trying to work my way through it. I was so excited for this book. Again, it had an acting perspective and a romance, and I was so happy for the representation. There was some really good just aspects of it, but I didn't like how the love was blossoming and that they were like, I ended up DNFing it at a point when they were trying to do something fun together, but they weren't having fun together, and they were both like, let's give up. And I was just like, Why are you saying that you're in love with someone that you literally don't even know how to spend time with this person? It's funny to me, but I totally understand why other people like it, because that could be someone's fantasy. That could be something that someone really loves to read and indulge in. But to me, I wasn't excited. It was just, you know, lackluster and just slightly annoying. Whew. Yeah. Wow, that was a lot of chatting. I hope this video either gave you a new recommendation, updated you on some books that I've read this year, because I know I haven't posted it in a hot minute. My bad. Make sure to, you know, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because I don't know, YouTube tells me I should tell you that stuff. And also check out my Patreon. If you like my videos, I post them there all the time. Pictures, bonus videos, reading vlogs, and all that stuff. So I highly recommend you check it out. My goal is to get to 50 Patreons. Maybe help a girl out. That's it for today's video. Stay tuned for new videos. I'm, yep, again, starting a new reading challenge this year. I'm gonna try and get all my books on my physical TBR. I'm scared, but so excited. Oh, the first book of 2022 has already been a 5-star read, and I'm so excited. Oh, so excited. Okay, I hope this video gave you a little bit more sunshine, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.